It's been too damned many times across too damned many years for me to ever question that feeling. She was murdered, and I was right here when it happened, lying next to her, stone drunk, just like she was. Damn it, Goldie, who were you, and who wanted you dead? Who were you besides an angel of mercy, giving a two-time loser like me the night of his life? God knows why. Sure as hell wasn't my looks. Not my looks or anything else about me. Dames without a tenth of what you had to offer write me off as the macho pig I am. So why that sleazy saloon? Why that slow smile? Why the kindness, Goldie? Why, I ask now. But when you got scared, when you trembled, and your eyes went as big as a little girl's, I didn't ask why. Not then. Then, I didn't give a damn what was bothering you. All of a sudden, something outside screams, coming this way. Cops, they're telling me too much, showing up before anybody but me and the killer could know there's been a murder. No time to hide. No point in playing good citizen either. Sin City cops have had their hands on me before. This time, they won't make the mistake of letting me live. Damn. No reason at all to play it quiet. No reason to play it anyway, but my way. I remember when I was a teenager and I first watched the movie Sin City, I was absolutely blown away. I was probably watching it on a laptop in my bedroom on Netflix as a teenager one late night, and everything from the gritty noir storytelling, the way that all of these individual separate anthology stories intersected towards the end, the beautiful black and white cinematography with hints of color for specific moments to really emphasize them. All of it really blew me away. And it's actually one of my favorite movies, directed by Robert Rodriguez, who I think is a hit and miss director for me. But that's aside from the point today. I am now finally starting to read the comics that the movie was based off of, which are entirely done by Frank Miller, writing, drawing, doing the lettering, and because it's black and white, he doesn't engage with his usual collaborator Lynn Varley on the colors. And I expected to like this. I am a big fan of Frank Miller's work on comics like Daredevil, Batman Year One, The Dark Knight Returns, and even his more independent work like Ronin, which was a really wild and trippy cyberpunk infused with samurai story that I read last year and highly recommend. So I had high expectations going into reading Sin City. The first volume I read, The Hard Goodbye, which is one of the stories that is adapted in the movie. If you've seen the movie, you kind of know how the story will go. But did I like the comic? Well, you'll just have to watch and see. Hello, my name is Steven, but you might better know me by my superhero alter ego, Spike Stonehand, and welcome to my channel, Divining Comics, where I explore the magic hidden between the panels of your favorite comics.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality.
Thank you for watching. If you would do me a favor and just click the like button and subscribe to my channel, that'll really help spread my content to the broader YouTube comic sphere. It's a free way to support what I do. You can also support me over on my blog, spikestonehand.com, where I do reviews of other things that I'm reading, new comic recommendations, links to other podcast videos and comics news items that I think are of note. Finally, you can support me on Patreon, patreon.com/divining comics. You get your name thrown in at the end of these videos. So without further ado, let's actually dig into Sin City, The Hard Goodbye. And after that long wait, yes, I will reveal my feelings towards this comic, and it's that I loved it. This was amazing. This was really incredible, actually. First and foremost, the thing to note is the art, right? That's why you're here. It's a Frank Miller drawn comic. I know that some people, because of his recent cover work over at Marvel, have soured a bit on Frank's more modern art style. I personally think that is due to the coloring choices. I think that the black and white of his artwork usually does still work in the modern era, even in its kind of a more abstracted form. But I think that his art at this point in his career in Sin City is never been better. This black and white is really suited for his style, his choices, and he uses it in such incredible and interesting ways, playing with the hard light and shadow. There's no grays in this universe, even though it is a moral universe full of grays, of bad people that do occasionally do good things, and good people that get sucked into bad systems beyond their control. But he plays with the shadows. Like, he'll do things where it'll be a brick building, but only you can see only the bricks and the shadow that's cast by Marv, our lead in this story. There's just so many inventive choices in the way that this is laid out and paneled. It was really astounding to me on this read. So if you've never read this first volume or seen the movie, it tells the story of Marv, who's a very violent ex-con. He's doesn't even really have a heart of gold, though he does have a strong moral code. He spends the night with this woman who wakes up dead the next morning, and he tries to figure out who killed her, especially since he is the one taking the blame for her actions. And as he does, he gets caught up in this big conspiracy, classic noir story of the corruption of the city and the people within it who are covering for the evil that they perpetuate and benefit from. So as far as the story goes, I will say that there's moments where the prose can be a little purple, and if that's not your thing, then you might struggle here. Especially there's bits where the character Marv, like I said, he's not supposed to always be a likable guy. He is very much not so, and I think that that could be evident here in some of the dialogue or his inner narration that even is offensive at certain points, which again I think fits his character, but especially those that are sensitive to those things, or maybe that don't like reading stuff from Frank Miller, who has had trouble for the things that he has said in real life, especially towards Muslims. In real life, I can definitely understand why you might want to engage with this with caution, or steer clear a little bit. That being said, I do think it works for the story that's being told here. I don't think it's out of character, and it never felt to the point that that it was like justifying these awful things that Marvel's doing, because I think you are supposed to think he's a bad guy. And another interesting thing I thought about the way that this was told is that it is done often in an almost more an illustrated artwork, like a picture book as opposed to a comic book. You'll have one giant image that takes most of the page, and then along the right side of the page will be his inner narration, thoughts, and captions. So you're really kind of getting into his head here in a way that it switches back and forth between that illustrated novel style and then the more traditional comic style in a way that I liked. I think that sometimes when it's too much of just an illustrated novel, that it's not my personal favorite. It feels kind of like you're reading a storybook for adults, and it doesn't do that too much here, so it's not a big problem. But that could be another thing that some people might find off-putting. I thought it was done with enough taste here that it really gives you a lot of time to have a bunch of text, so that you can kind of get those text dumps out of the side and then switch back to telling the main story. I will also say that there are the characters in this, they're all so comically evil and villainous. The main villain, the character who is played by Elijah Wood in the movie adaptation, and he's a not a good person, bad person. Silent but deadly killer. But I thought that the way that they kind of juxtapose Frank Miller's noted interest in Japanese culture with this more modern setting in a kind of urban environment, I thought was kind of cool, right? That the killer, the villain of the story, is kind of like a modern day ninja who's able to silently sneak past anybody, and he has these violent sociopathic urges versus the Marv, the lead, is more of your classic Ronin type figure, the kind of brooding man without allegiance, only in it for himself, but he does have a certain moral code that he sticks to. And I thought that was a fun, very subtle, if you don't know that that's one of Frank Miller's long-standing interests, you might not notice that he was doing it here. But I thought was really effective storytelling. Going back to the art a little bit, the black and white almost borders on abstract at certain points in a way that I found quite beautiful and moving. There's a scene where Marv is at a club watching a woman dance, and her dance becomes almost abstract, especially for comic art at the time. If you were 14 years old in whatever 1988 when this was being written, your mind would be absolutely blown reading this art. You would become a Frank Miller fan for life because of the way it tells the story visually so perfectly, but without being overly literal, without being overly detailed. It gives you exactly the information that you need in a given moment and nothing more. You'll have huge swaths of white or black, depending on the point of the story that you're in. Like I said, it borders on abstract. Like, this would be art that you could very much hang on a wall in a museum, at a gallery. It's that good looking, folks. I will say, again, as a slight negative, is that some of the action sequences, like there's a sequence towards the beginning where there's an oncoming police car that Marv has to jump on top of and break through the windshield. It gets a little confusing in the black and white. Some color would make things a little bit more clear, perhaps, but at the same time, I think you would lose the raw impact and energy of the pages in color. It wouldn't be as stark or as stunning. So I think that's a compromise that I am very much willing to make. I wouldn't want to read a modern recolored version of these stories. I think they are meant for black and white, and that is the environment that they thrive in. And another small detail that I really appreciated from the art is the way that it visually would depict Marv's increasing stress, deteriorating mental state, and deteriorating body as the story goes on. As he takes on more scars, you can see the damage on his face show visually. You can see the kind of panels get rougher and more chaotic as he's losing mental focus and losing stability. It's all incredibly well done. I cannot recommend this enough. And I think I read all of this in an afternoon, basically. Like it goes down easy, it goes down quick. I could not be a bigger fan of this. So when we turn to wrapping things up and my usual question of would I continue to read this, the answer is yes. I think at this point in his career, Frank Miller still has it, and maybe later runs at a certain point, the Sin City feels a little too much of indulgent in the negatives that I highlighted, the kind of fear of other people in the big city that characterizes a lot of conservative art like Death Wish. I could see it leaning into that too much at a certain point, but right here it's done well enough that it is more in the morally gray film noir tradition instead of like a right-wing paranoid fantasy fully. But I admit that it could definitely get to that point. And until then, I would definitely keep reading Sin City. Who would I recommend this for? If you're a fan of noir, if you like classic movies or comics like both the Parker novels and adaptations done by Darwin Cook, I could see you enjoying the kind of amorality of this story. Obviously, if you love Frank Miller, you gotta read Sin City. If you've read or watched the movie and enjoyed it, I would recommend checking this out because the movie, I think, takes a bunch of different volumes and kind of intercuts all the stories. This is going to be a quicker video than normal because it is just one straightforward story. And I think the movie's choice to intercut them does make things a little bit more interesting, but I wouldn't want to read a comic that was all of them intercut. That would take way too long, of course. But if you like the movie, check this comic out. Thank you for watching this video. Like I said, give me a like and subscribe to this channel. Hey, do you disagree? Do you think I'm bad for reading a Frank Miller comic and liking it? Let me know in the comments. I'll take your hate. But until then, this has been Steven, also known as Spike Stonehand, signing off. Never let the magic of comics die.
Old Enoch, he lived to be 365 when the Lord came and took him back to heaven alive. I saw the light from heaven shining all around. I saw the light come shining. I saw that light come down.